Hi, I'm Abby from Ratings.com. Today is a big day, folks. For today, we review the Hisense U7N. Its predecessor, the Hisense U7K, is one of our most recommended TVs, appearing in 21 of our recommendations for the simple reason it's a good unit. But what about the Hisense U7N? Can it achieve the same lofty heights as its predecessor? Today we find out. Before we jump into it, this video won't cover everything we tested, but our written review does. You can check that out over on our website. The Hisense U7N is available in 3 sizes, 55, 65, and 75 inches. We reviewed the 65-inch model. Our results also apply to the smaller 55-inch size. The bigger 75-inch model uses an ADS Pro panel, so it performs differently than the VA panel that's on the smaller sizes, as it'll have worse contrast, but a better viewing angle. This is a premium-looking TV with somewhat thin bezels. Comes with a plastic center-mounted stand that doesn't require a large table, but the footprint is a bit deep as the stand sticks out past the front of the screen. It's stable enough even though there's a bit of wobble when pushed. Plus, it gives a clearance of about 3.2 inches from the table, which is high enough for almost any soundbar to fit. From the back, it looks the same as last year's U7K. The flat portions are metal, while the section with the inputs and subwoofer is made of plastic. The inputs come out on the left side. Thankfully, they're close enough to the edge that you'll have access to them when the TV is wall-mounted, which is excellent. What is less excellent is that the USB, Ethernet, and optical ports are on the back, so you can't access those when the TV is up against the wall. It's not the end of the world, but it is a bummer. Fortunately, the TV has clips on each side of the stand through which you can funnel cables. If you don't use the stand, however, then there is nothing to help you keep your cables tidy. The TV has 4 HDMI ports. Ports 3 and 4 have HDMI 2.1 bandwidth and up to 4K at 144 Hz support. A nice touch for gamers. The HDMI 1 port also doubles as the eARC port, so you won't lose a precious HDMI 2.1 port when you have a soundbar connected to the TV, which is fantastic. The TV can pass through all major audio formats, so you won't have to worry about getting the best sound out of your 4K Blu-rays, for example. It also supports both HDR10+ and Dolby Vision, so you'll get the best HDR quality no matter the source. We wish all TVs were like that. Other than that, the TV has 2 USB ports. The one facing the back is a USB 2.0 port, and the one facing the side is a USB 3.0 port. Finally, there's an ATSC 3.0 tuner on the side. The Hisense U7N uses version 12 of the Google TV Smart Interface. It's snappy and easy to navigate. But unfortunately, like all TVs, there are ads, and you can't opt out of them. The U7N has a redesigned remote this year. It has a brushed metallic finish and the typical app shortcut buttons. And guess what? It has backlighting! You can finally use your Hisense remote like a glow stick. Nice! The remote and the TV have built-in microphones, so whether you want to use the remote or just your beautiful voice for commands, it's up to you. Time for some picture quality, starting, as usual, with contrast. The 65-inch model only has 384 dimming zones, but they're put to good use as this TV's contrast with local dimming enabled is fantastic. Its effective local dimming feature provides very deep blacks in a dark room, and they stay mostly deep when highlights are also present on screen. When it comes to blooming and lighting zone transitions, there's nothing unusual about the U7N. Like many TVs with local dimming enabled, you'll notice some blooming around bright objects and subtitles. With zone transitions, there's noticeable haloing with very fast-moving content, and the leading edge of quick-moving objects is visibly dimmer. Not only does it have excellent contrast, but it also has excellent HDR brightness. It's a big improvement over the U7K, as last year's model peaked at around 939 nits in a 25% window. The U7N goes up to a whopping 1300 nits in the same window size. Sure, that's in test patterns, but this brightness improvement is also noticeable in our real scene tests, which are meant to replicate real content. Highlights really stand out on this thing, especially in darker scenes. Plus, it doesn't lose any of its brightness in game mode. In fact, it's slightly over-brightened in game mode. While your mileage may vary, we'd wager most people prefer slightly over-brightened to much dimmer, which we often see on other TVs, so this model really delivers. In HDR, this TV is fantastically accurate. Sure, the blacks are slightly too bright and some shadows and midtones are slightly too dark, but in filmmaker mode, the TV closely follows the curve until it reaches peak brightness. There's a gradual roll-off near the TV's peak brightness, which helps to preserve detail in very bright specular highlights with content mastered at 4000 nits. The roll-off doesn't matter as much for content mastered at 600 and 1000 nits, as the TV is bright enough to display those highlights properly. The U7N has an excellent color gamut. It doesn't quite cover the entirety of the DCI P3 color space used in most HDR content, but it's close, and it has incredible color accuracy to boot. The TV has good coverage of the wider Rec 2020 color space, but here highly saturated colors are mostly undersaturated and off the mark, especially with saturated greens and cyans. For color volume, dark saturated colors are displayed well due to the amazing contrast. The TV also displays a wide range of colors at high luminance levels, but it does struggle a bit with displaying very bright and saturated magentas and reds. Time for some SDR. If you mostly watch SDR content, well, this TV is meant for you, as its SDR brightness is amazing. It's bright enough to overcome glare in bright rooms, so it can be your go-to model for daytime TV marathons, especially with its excellent reflection handling. The semi-gloss screen finish significantly reduces the intensity of indirect reflections and does an excellent job of reducing the intensity of reflections coming from bright lights or windows placed directly opposite the screen. Phew. We sure are positive about this TV, aren't we? Well, fret not. We're about to be a little bit less positive, starting with the SDR Pre-Calibration Accuracy. It's unremarkable, to say the least. Its white balance is poor, and its blues are overrepresented in all shades of gray. This overabundance of blues shows up in the TV's color temperature, which leans cold, giving everything a bluish tint. Gamma is close to our target of 2.2, but very dark scenes are too bright, and most other scenes are too dark. Its color accuracy is good, but there are inaccuracies with whites, lighter yellows, and lighter cyans. Last year's U7K was significantly more accurate than this, something we'll touch upon more in the verdict, so stay tuned. Thankfully, you can improve its accuracy through calibration, and it's easy to calibrate to boot. Now, this isn't new for Hisense, as last year's models really gave us a hard time. This year, everything worked as expected, and calibration is straightforward. After calibration, this TV's SDR accuracy is almost perfect. Nice. This TV has a dark side, and it starts at 17 degrees off-center. Yeah, this viewing angle is pretty disappointing to say the least. Move off-center and your world of color crumbles. You'll see significant gamma and color shifting, loss of brightness, and a generally washed out image. This really isn't the TV to buy if you want to watch sports with your friends, unless you all want to sit stacked on top of each other. Let's talk about image processing. The TV has very good low-quality content smoothing. It does a great job of smoothing out artifacts and low bitrate content, such as from streaming video, while still preserving details. It also does a good job of upscaling low-resolution content like DVDs or lower-resolution streams. Details are clear enough, but finer details are hard to make out. On top of it all, the TV can remove 24p Judder from 24p sources like Blu-rays and native apps. But it doesn't remove Judder from 60Hz sources like cable boxes and older streaming devices that don't have a match frame rate feature. Thankfully, you can use the Judder reduction setting to remove Judder from 60Hz sources without noticeable artifacts. Like most LED TVs, the U7N uses pulse width modulation to dim its backlight, which introduces flicker that some people are sensitive to. That said, the U7N flickers at a high 7800 Hz in every picture mode and brightness level, so you're not likely to notice it. Despite some black smearing when coming out of dark states, the overall response time performance is fantastic, with minimal motion blur. Now, this TV still has Hisense's peculiar response time behavior. At refresh rates above 100 Hz, the response time is more aggressive, but at the cost of more overshoot errors. Inversely, below 100 Hz, the response time is slower, leading to an overall blurrier presentation. This isn't the end of the world when you're running at a fixed refresh rate, although we'd recommend locking your fast-paced action games above 100 Hz if you can. But with VRR enabled, it leads to rapid changes in response time as your frame rate hovers around 100 Hz. 1 second, it's fast, but with overshoot. The other second, it's slow, with some blur. Lather, rinse, repeat, it's not great. On a more positive note, the TV has very low input lag in its PC and game mode. You'll have a responsive gaming experience with little noticeable delay between your inputs and what happens on screen. The U7N supports all common resolutions up to 4K at 144 Hz, but there are some caveats. While it technically supports 1080p at 240 Hz, it doesn't with VRR enabled, as it's capped at 72 Hz with VRR. With VRR disabled, it works, but we encountered an issue where the TV was initially frame skipping a lot. After toggling the Enable G-Sync option on and off in the NVIDIA control panel, we eventually got 1080p at 240 Hz to work without any frame skips. Let's just say that that resolution and refresh rate combo might cause you some issues, so beware. 1440p works well at 120 and 144 Hz, and it also works at 60 Hz through resolution forcing. For console gamers, the TV is fully compatible with everything the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S have to offer, including 4K at 120 Hz, auto low latency mode, VRR, and Dolby Vision gaming. It really does it all. So, should you buy this TV? Most likely, yeah. Just like last year at the price point this TV is selling for, it's basically unmatched. It performs as well as many other mid-range models from more well-known manufacturers, but at a lower price. In fact, we'd say that this TV's primary competitor is its predecessor, the Hisense U7K. Let's tackle that for a second or two. If you stumble upon the two TVs for the exact same price, which one should you buy? For most people, the answer is the U7N. It's brighter than the U7K with slightly better contrast, so it looks better in bright and dark rooms. The U7N is also more accurate in HDR, so movies are shown as the creator intended. However, the U7K does have much better pre-calibration SDR accuracy. So if you're a color purist and you watch a lot of SDR content, then maybe you could opt for the U7K instead. But for most people, the choice is clear. The newer model is a bit better overall. Of course, they're close, and the U7K is likely to be on sale for a few months as Hisense gets rid of its old stock, so you could save some money by going with last year's still excellent model. If you'd rather shop for a model from one of the big three brands, then every equivalent model will be significantly more expensive than the Hisense. You're paying for the brand name there. The Samsung is, yes, more expensive, but it has better contrast than the U7N and is more accurate in SDR and HDR, making it better for darkroom movie sessions. The Samsung also has HDMI 2.1 bandwidth on all 4 ports, versus 2 for the Hisense, although the former caps out at 4K at 120 Hz. The Hisense is, however, better for bright rooms due to its better reflection handling, and it has Dolby Vision and DTS audio support, making it the better option for physical media collectors. So it's close, but at the time of filming this video, the Samsung QN85D is about twice the price of the Hisense U7N. So it's probably not worth it, but you do you. And that's all we've got for the Hisense U7N. If you want a more detailed write-up so you can pore over charts and graphs galore, check out our full review in the link down below. Until next time, I'm Abby from Ratings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Looking for headphones and can't seem to find a pair? We have just what you need. In-depth reviews packed full of all the data you can't get anywhere else. Head over to our new channel, Ratings.com Audio, and make sure to hit that subscribe button. Ding ding!